Hi everyone, my name is Kelsey Madden, and I'm a PhD student at the University of Sheffield in the Archaeology department, and I am a Roman archaeologist. I have dug in Britain and Italy for many years and supervised various sites throughout those countries. So if you have any questions about archaeology, what I do, or how to get a career in archaeology, or if you have any questions about the Iron Age that we're going to talk about today, just let your teacher know and she can email me those questions and I would be happy to answer those for you. So today we're going to go over what archaeology is, the different types of careers you can have in archaeology, and the Iron Age Britain and the archaeology of that. All right, so what is archaeology? Archaeology is anything that was made in the past. So that includes objects, buildings, gardens, and even people. And it's a systematic way of basically digging through the dirt to contextualize and record our finds to help us understand more about the settlement of the people there and the site during the time period of study. And here we're talking about Iron Age Britain. These include lots of different jobs instead of just digging. So if you want to try your hand at digging, the university offers a program called Dig It during the summer where we invite students such as you guys to come and learn how to excavate. I teach that myself, and we have a lot of wonderful students come, and we love having you guys. So if you do get an opportunity and you want to try your hand at digging, uh, please do remember that and get in touch with us. But there are other things besides digging if you are not physically up for the task, because it is physically, it can be physically taxing, but it can be very rewarding. So if you're not into maybe digging, there are definitely a ton of other ways that you can work with artifacts. You can preserve artifacts as a conservationist. You can work in storerooms and small finds rooms and help catalog these things. You can work in museum, or you can work in heritage management. And you can also work in labs, working on human bones, animal bones, ceramics, you name it. And you can also teach. So there's a wide range of things that you can do in archaeology, and it's not just limited to digging. And I do encourage you, if you do have an interest in archaeology, to look more into that and what that entails and the different types of school you have to go to do that. So what is an artifact? An artifact is any object from the past that is thrown away, lost, or buried for whatever reason. And as archaeologists, we try to figure out why these things happen. And these are made of different materials, and some survive better than others. So I want you to already be thinking about materials that you think might survive longer in the dirt than others, and things that might not survive so well. And I also want you to think about why that is. So what kinds of artifacts are found at Iron Age sites? We have pottery, glass, metal, building materials, and bone. And here in this picture, we have some late Iron Age Roman pottery from a site that I supervise out in Bruff at a Roman vicus, which is a civilian settlement outside of a Roman fort. So pottery and glass and metal, and even bone, can be reworked to help express cultural identities in the past. And we're going to learn more about how that happens today. So going on, we're going to look at a very specific Iron Age site here in Britain. But first I want to tell you that the Iron Age in Britain begins around 800 BC and ends in AD 43 with the invasion of Romans under the Emperor Claudius. Now this is a date that has been come up by archaeologists and historians, and we're going to talk about the complexity of that date and what that means here at the end. So in the Iron Age, they were illiterate. They did not have the ability to write down their own histories. So this is where archaeology comes in, and it is really important because this is how we are able to study and learn about this culture and the way that these people lived during the Iron Age. So archaeology is the only way that we can find out about these past cultures that didn't have the written word. So here at Burrow Hill, we have evidence for ritual activity and hoarding materials. It was found in Leicestershire. The human activity was going on there since the Mesolithic. The most intensive activity was between 100 BC and AD 50 and was still in use between the 1st and 4th centuries AD when Britain was under Roman control. So there was a lot of human activity going on here throughout a huge amount of time. So here in the middle, we have the excavation of inside the fort of some round houses, which I'm sure you guys have been learning about. These holes here are from posts or some form of foundational structure to the huts to keep the huts up. And then on the left, we have a reconstruction of the fort and the huts inside the fort. So we have the wall and the rampart that goes around, and then you can see the little huts in the middle and an idea of kind of how this fort was laid out. On the right-hand side, we have what it looks like today if you were to go and visit it today. The structures are still in the ground, the earthworks are, so you can see its impact on the landscape and how that looks today. So there was a hoard discovered here by the University of Leicester during their excavations, and they uncovered a hoard of rare bronze fittings from a 2nd to 3rd century BC chariot. So the pieces appear to have been buried as a religious offering. They were put in a box, and then they were buried in the ground, and they put a layer of cereal chaff, so the leftover from the processing of cereals, they put that in the ground, and then they put the box with the chariot pieces in it on top. And the cereal chaff kind of acted as maybe like a bed for the box, but then they burnt all of this as part of a religious ritual. So again, the chaff may have been some kind of like cushion for the box, and also acted as fuel for the fire. So after the fire and the burning, the deposit was covered by a layer of burnt cinder and slag. So slag is leftover scrap metal materials from melting iron or bronze when they were casting all those things. So it's just metal waste. So they threw that on top. And that laid undisturbed for more than 2,200 years until archaeologists found it just a few years ago. So this chariot would have belonged to a high status person like a noble or a warrior. Also, the burial may have been to mark a new season or a final closure or dismembering or dismantling of a house in the fort. So in the Iron Age, peoples during this time usually tended to have some kind of religious ritual when something was being deconstructed or a new season came or they were building something. So, or in borders as well and passageways. So there's a lot of different options here. So in the middle we have a tool for combing horses and brushing them and keeping them clean. And then we have here on the right, we have lynch pins, which are pins that would have gone in to help keep the chariot pieces together. And on the left, we have other bronze pieces and fittings from the chariot and would have been decoration or something to hold the chains together. All right. Let's move on to some other Iron Age facts. So all this stuff here we're going to talk about has to do with ritual, magic, or hoarding, and is really intricate in the beliefs of the Iron Age Celtic people. And religious beliefs and rituals were complex, and they were interwoven into everyday activities like farming, cooking, and metalworking. So this was a very part of their everyday lives. Archaeologists, we rarely find remains of temple buildings. So what we're trying to figure out and piece together here is how these rituals worked. for their religion because we don't have the temple buildings and how they were set up normally. Sometimes we do have them, but it's very rare. So these offerings are deposited into fields, homes, hilltops, and rivers. So all these ritual offerings in the form of either magic or like we saw with the chariot being burned for a religious offering, they can be deposited into various places. And like with the chariot, we saw that it was buried just outside of a house that had possibly been dismantled. So there's various reasons and places for these things to show up. So we're going to go and we're going to talk about these up here in the right-hand corner, these spoons. They're called the Penbryn spoons, and they date from 51 BC to 99 AD. So the decoration on the handles here suggests that they were important objects, and there's a little hole in this one. So archaeologists think that they may have dripped a liquid through this little hole in this spoon on top of this spoon that has the lines on it. Maybe to use the pattern by the droplets to tell the future or some other kind of ritualistic thing. And this is only a British convention. This is only found in Britain in the Iron Age, and only one pair has been found in the country, and it is this pair. So this pair of spoons belongs to some form of magic ritual of telling the future, possibly, is what we think. At the bottom, we have these bronze boars from Hounslow Hoard. They date to 51 BC to 26 BC. These were originally attached to helmets or buckets. They were buried in a hoard with other model creatures, and interestingly enough, depictions of animals are rare in Iron Age Britain, archaeologically, and they're unusual to be found buried together. So this is a really interesting and unique find here and tells us a lot of good information about the people during this time and what they liked. So in the top right-hand corner here, we have this bone and coins. So this was a cow bone hoard, is what we like to call it, from 61 BC to 2 BC is what it dates to. It contained 20 gold coins minted in North France. And then they were all packed into this bone and buried as an offering to the gods or for safekeeping. And the reason we think maybe it was a ritual burial was because coins were not really used for exchange in Iron Age Britain, and the people really used them as offerings at sacred sites or on boundaries. And here at the bottom left, we have a torque, the Snettisham torque. This dates from 151 BC to 51 BC. It weighs 1 kilogram and is made from 64 twisted wires. And this would have been a way for people to express their local identity. And the torques were very specific to this region of the world and in France, or what the Romans like to call Gaul. So they're very specific, distinctive jewelry wear for people of the Iron Age in Britain. So we have warfare. We have examples of warfare. We have a shield here on the right. As you can tell, it's in really good condition and still has all of its nice fittings on it, and it's still really pretty. And it dates from 351 BC to 51 BC and was found in the River Thames. So this may have just been a decorative piece since there's no evidence of warfare or defensive marks from warfare. Archaeologists think that this is probably just maybe a decorative piece or a ritualistic piece. Since it was probably deliberately put into the river, it was probably put in as an offering to some form of god or gods. So we do have pieces like this that survive, and they survive and look this well for a specific reason, and that was because they were a ritualistic offering. Some of these things can be found in tombs as well and have the same purpose. So we don't, archaeologists, we do find things and shields like this that have been used in warfare that do indicate that, but a lot of these come from graves or rivers which have been, ritual deposits. So we have an example here of an Iron Age warrior. This is the Kirkburn mail shirt and dates from 251 BC to 161 BC. This is a reconstruction. This is based on corroded fragments of iron mail armor found in a grave of a man in Kirkburn, East Yorkshire. So iron is rarely found in the archaeological record up here in Britain because iron corrodes faster than any other metal. And as you know, it rains a lot here. And so there's a lot of moisture and it just eats away at the iron. So this makes iron mail armor a find that is really, really special. And iron mail did require great skill and knowledge. So these pieces here were done by really great craftsmen and workmen here. It took a lot of time and effort. So now we have stuff that people would wear for their identities. Here we have an armlet that would have been worn on the arm. We have a glass bead here that could have been part of somebody's necklace or jewelry. On the left here we have a mirror. On the right we have some hook brooches, which would have been used to put their clothes together. And they would have only used one on one side of the shoulder. And here on the top right, we have surgical instruments that date from 39 AD to 59 AD. So this would have been later Iron Age after the Roman invasion, and came from a doctor's grave. So this doctor was either taught by somebody from Rome or came from Rome and brought his tools with him. We also have a ceramic beaker. We have weaving combs. And we even have a reconstructed gaming board that dates from 39 AD to 59 AD. So they were also playing games. We have evidence of people of the Iron Age playing games, which is really awesome. There was no dice found with the game, so we think that it probably was more of a strategic game. And then on the right, we have some spindle whorls. These would have been used to weight down textiles for weaving. So there is complexity, like I said, about the dating of the Iron Age and at the end of the Iron Age, because the Iron Age is thought by historians to have ended in Britain with the Roman conquest led by Emperor Claudius in AD 43, but the reality is more complex than that. Native culture incorporated Roman traditions into their own, and these pieces here are a perfect example of that. So when the Romans came over, it's not like that the native Britons dropped their own culture. They kept their own culture, and a lot of them were willing to adapt and incorporated Roman materials that they used to express their own identity. So they were able to make this kind of like melting pot of art, which is really interesting because this here we have the top that looks kind of like a dragon's head. So this dragon, these are brooches that would have been put on clothes and in a pair. So the dragon head style is Roman in style. And the idea of the S shape here is developed from local British styles. So the local people here have incorporated Roman tradition into their own tradition and have produced a really beautiful piece. And they also did this in pairs in Roman tradition because Romans would have put one on each shoulder and Celts usually just only had one on one shoulder. So we see a transition here of how people were wearing their clothes based off of their contact with Rome. All right, so right now I'm going to have your teacher pass out some worksheets, and you're going to take a shot at drawing up an artifact and recording. That's what we do. We call it a small finds form. So all these little pieces are called small finds. And what you're going to do is take a shot at picking one of the 3 artifacts on the sheet there, and you're going to draw it out on the scale. It says to change the scale, don't worry about any of that. Just draw that in the little boxes there. And then I want you to note what you think it's made out of and all the other questions that it asks you, okay? So what happens to artifacts is what we're going to talk about really quickly. So they're dug up on excavations. or by people, metal detectorists. People find them because the ground has moved or corroded or eroded. And then they're cleaned up and conserved by archaeologists and then put in a museum for people like you to see. So now I want you to pick your artifacts, draw on your sheet, and have a go at answering the questions. Think about what it's made of, what it is, and who could have used it. And then once you're done with that, there's another worksheet if you have time. It has a group of artifacts on it that I want you to try and take a shot at interpreting what they are, what they're made out of, and who might have used them. And the interpretation, I haven't given you any idea of what they are, so you're going to have to take a shot on your own, and your teacher will let you know if you're on the right track or not. I hope you've enjoyed this little mini lecture on Iron Age Britain and archaeology. If, like I said at the beginning, if you have any questions, please just let your teacher know, and she can email me, and I would love to answer your questions. All right, thanks for participating, and I hope you guys enjoyed.